بسم الله الحق المبين، وأعوذ به من مرضة الإنس والجن والشياطين، وأصلي وأسلم على من جاء لإسعاد العالم وهديهم إلى الطريق القويم إلى صراط الله المستقيم. أحييكم جميعا من تحية الإسلام الخالدة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. في البدء نترحم على كل عزيز فقد وكل غال عن دنيانا رحل، ونسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يتغمدهم برحمته ويدخلهم فسيح جناته مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين، وندعوه أن يرأف بحال الوطن ويبعد عنه الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن، ويرزقهم الأمن والأمان والسلامة والاطمئنان على كل حل وحال يا رب العالمين. وبعد، فنحن في المكتب الأكاديمي لرابطة تقديم المختبرات الطبية السودانيين بدولة قطر نسعد بكم وندعوكم لحضور مجموعة من الفعاليات والمحاضرات التي ستقام بصورة دورية في هذه المنصة، على أمل الاستفادة وتحقيق رؤية هي المساهمة في إنشاء كادر مختبراتي متكامل. وعليه نبدأ بإذن الله تعالى أولى الفعاليات لهذه الدورة، محاضرة بعنوان Introduction to Laboratory Instruments يقدمها لنا الزميل العزيز أبوبكر عجبان. والزميل أبوبكر عجبان تخرج من جامعة السودان للعلوم والتكنولوجيا في العام 2009 في تخصص علم أمراض الأنسجة والخلايا، كما أنه حاصل على ماجستير في نفس التخصص أمراض الأنسجة والخلايا في العام 2013. اشتغل كمحاضر منذ العام 2013 حتى الآن في جامعة السودان للعلوم والتكنولوجيا وعدد من الجامعات، وتدرج في هذه الجامعة العريقة حتى وصل إلى درجة نائب عميد شؤون الطلاب بجامعة السودان للعلوم والتكنولوجيا سابقا. لا شك أنها سيرة عاطرة تستحق الإشادة والتقدير، وليتفضل الأخ أبو بكر مشكورا.
طيب، السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
أول حاجة شكرا للمقدمة الطيبة اللي قدمها عادل. أتمنى أن تكون محاضرة قيمة والناس تقدر تستفيد منها بقدر المستطاع يعني. نحاول نبدأ المحاضرة.
أبو بكر لحظة بس، شايفة الناس في الشات كلهم بيقولوا ما في صوت، فهسي بطلب من الناس اللي معانا حاليا إذا الصوت واضح يكتبوا لنا في الشات إذا الصوت واضح. أوكي، يلا
شير للسلايد عادل. طيب, our lecture today, inshallah, introduction to laboratory instrument. Actually, I will try to cover the laboratory instrument, but it's so hard to cover all the laboratory instrument in one lecture. So I will try to summarize this lecture on few slides. Hopefully, it's understandable and everyone get benefit. Okay, before we talking about the laboratory instrument, we should talk about different kinds of laboratory, because the type of instrument is mainly depend on the type of the laboratory. Very fast, I will try to show the general classification of the laboratory: research lab, analytical service lab or diagnostic lab, and manufactured laboratory. All of them containing the instrument in different kinds. For example, centrifuge. Centrifuge may be found in a research lab, diagnostic service lab, manufactured lab, and this is the most of the famous instrument on the medical laboratory. Okay, research lab. The difference between the research lab and diagnostic or analytical service lab and manufacture lab, generally many non-routine tests or research lab, low sample volume in research lab. And one of the most important points, the flexibility between the data and analysis performed. That means there is no clients waiting the result. There is no patient, the result of the research laboratory. It was not followed by specific treatment for the patient. So the analytical, on the other hand, we have analytical service or diagnostic service laboratories. The test performed at the customer required or physician required. High sample volume, that means you should have an instrument, high performance, routine test, variable workload, as we know. Manufacturing laboratory, and it's usually concerned with final product testing, stability testing, work in progress testing, environmental testing, raw material acceptance testing, how many tests per sample. So as I mentioned before, the laboratory specimen, the laboratory instrument is a very important part of the laboratory because our work mainly rely upon the instrument output. If the instrument output is accurate and reliable, that means the mission and vision of the laboratory will be verified. So I will try to start with the proper management of the instrument. Laboratory instrument is necessary to ensure accurate and reliable test and also this timely test result. So the benefit of the good equipment management program are many. So your instrument, you should have a good instrument management program. So this program or the equipment management program help to maintain high level of the laboratory performance, of course, and also reduce the variation in the test results and improve the technologist's confidence in the accuracy of the test results. When the laboratory staff have a high confidence on the reality and the accuracy of the results, that's one of the good things in the web. Lower repairing cost, as fewer repairing will be needed for well-maintained instrument. Okay. Also, lengthening instrument life and reduce interruption of service due to breakdown or failure. As you know, when you have our service instrument, the work accumulated, particularly in the core lab, where very high routine sample load. So also increase safety for the workers to avoid accident and produce greater customer satisfaction. And this is, I think, this is one of the most important, the customer satisfaction from the laboratory result. Okay. Okay, sorry for technical inconvenience. So At the laboratory, put the instrument management program in place. The following elements should be considered. As I said, the most important part on the instrument is the wheel maintenance and wheel management of your instrument. We have, I will start at the beginning when you have idea to purchase the instrument till retail step of the instrument. Okay, we have a lot of factors should be considered when you try to put or to apply the instrument management program. Should be put in your minds before you start to purchasing process, because all of us we know the wrong criteria or the purchasing of the invalid or buying of the instrument does not meet your expected results. That means it is money, the way of the money was. Selection and purchasing. When obtaining new equipment, what the criteria should be used to select the equipment? We have a lot of criteria to select the equipment, and we have different types of the instrument. Each one have specification and have characteristics differ from the other. Okay, and you should clearly select what type of the instrument you want to purchase. I will try to explain more later on, inshallah. Okay. The installation, the step number 2, the installation of the instrument. For new instrument, what are the installation requirements and how we'll install the new instrument. Also, the installation of the instrument is different. Some of the instruments depend on the country. For example, in Sudan, some of the instrument will be installed by the laboratory staff, and the other will be installed by the company staff. Okay, so the installation of the new instrument are what's required for the installation. You should be prepared and you should be provided the requirement of the installation before you purchase, because sometimes you're unable to provide all requirement for the instrument, because sometimes you have very big instrument and you have very small space. How you can install the instrument in that space? Some of the instrument needed gas supplement. How you can provide the gas supplement for your instrument? So you should look in for the requirement of an installation before you make a decision of the purchase. Number 3, and very important point, calibration and performance validation. What is needed to calibrate the instrument and validate it operating correctly? The validation and performance evaluation of the instrument is a very, very important point. We discuss that later, inshallah. So number 4, the maintenance. Anyhow, the regular maintenance of the instrument will avoid a lot of malfunction, and as I mentioned at the first slides, make you confidence in your results that is accurate and reliable result. So the maintenance, what's the maintenance schedule is recommended by the manufacturer, and will the laboratory need additional preventive maintenance procedure? It depends on the laboratory. If the standard operating procedure, the SOPs of the laboratory, recommend that additional preventive maintenance for the instrument or not, if you have specific vision to manage your instrument and to maintenance that. Okay, troubleshooting. Is there the clear procedure for troubleshooting of each instrument? And you should have you should know what's the type of troubleshooting of the instrument, because the troubleshooting make differentiation between the different type of instrument. So you can make clear decision depend on the troubleshooting of the instrument. And also you should have a clear procedure for troubleshooting and how you can solve the problems of the instrument. Service and repair. And I think it's also you should put in your mind before you're buying any instrument, what is the cost? Can the laboratory obtain necessary service and repair in the geographical area? Sometimes you buy the instrument, but unfortunately, your area there is no company service in your area. Say, for example, also when you want to buy the instrument from Europe, from America, and bring it to anywhere on the Middle East, you should looking for this is point, the repairing service and what is the cost of the instrument, because you have budget for that instrument. And the last point, retiring and disposing of the instrument, because this instrument should be replaced once upon a time by either new model or by new instrument. So from the beginning, you should put in your mind how you can retire and disposing this instrument, okay? And you should have a clear policy for that, because some of the instrument after its disposing still there is a radiation, such as the instrument depend on the fluorescence. They may radiation from the instrument for a long time, and this is harmful for the environment and for the population. So from the beginning, you should put in your mind what must be done to dispose of all instrument when it is need to be replaced. So this point, this 7 point, I will try to discuss this 7 point on the following section. The selection and application of the instrument. Okay, selection, the best instrument, of course, you want to select the most best instrument on the market for your laboratory. So the selection best instrument for the laboratory is a very important part of the instrument management. Some criteria to consider when selecting laboratory equipment are listed below. Why and who will the equipment be used? The instrument should be matched against the service of the laboratory provided. For this reason, I mentioned on the various slides different kinds of the laboratory, because just an example, I mentioned centrifuge. Why? Because we have a different size of centrifuge, from microcentrifuge to uranium centrifuge, for example. So the property of the instrument should match against the service provided by the laboratory. What are the performance criteria of the instrument? Is it sufficient, accurate, and reproducible to suit the need of the testing to be done? On this point, I want to give an example. If you want to, if you have a private lab or physician office laboratory, of course, the instrument on the physician office laboratory is totally different from the instruments that's present on the core lab or in our patient lab. So because on the core lab, the reducibility is very high. There is a lot of sample needed to issue the results on the time, and you have in Qatar we have a TAT, time turnaround for specimen. So you should put in your mind your instrument is highly reproducible. So the criteria of the instrument to select the most suitable the instrument. Number 3, also you should put in your mind what are the facilities required, including requirement for a physical space. If you have no physical space, you're unable to to install the instrument, and finally you lost your money. Will the cost of the instrument be within laboratory budget? This point is mentioned before. Will the reagent be readily available? And I think this is one of the most important points you should put in your mind, the availability of the reagent. You should ensure the reagent provided by the company on the regular basis, because when you when you buy the instrument and after 1 year, 2 years, for example, the company closes their office on the country and they go away. What you can do at that time, you should replace the instrument. So you should ensure the availability of the reagent and continuity of the reagent supply. Will the reagent be provided for free of charge for a limited period of time? If so, for how long? This is one of the good deal of the instrument. If the instrument or if the company will provide the instrument with a free reagent, you should get this benefit before you select. If you have 2 instruments, one of the company provides the instrument plus free reagent for short period of time, for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, depending on the company, and the other one provide all the instrument and you should buy the reagent. And there is no difference between the accuracy of the past reagent or the past instrument. At that time, you should select that instrument provided come with free charge reagent. How easy will it be for staff to operate? I think we have a general rule. The easy procedure is a based on complicated procedure. Okay, if you have an instrument, easy to staff operate, easy to maintenance, easy to clean, that's better than complicated instrument with a lot of reagents and so on. Will the instruction be available in the language that is understood? Don't buy the instrument with the manual written in a language, ununderstandable language, either non-English or non-Arabic. If there is a retail for the instrument in the country, after you finish, as I said, at the end, this instrument will be replaced either by a new model or by another instrument. So at this point, if there is a retail instrument retailing policy in your country with available service, of course you're unable to retire to retailer your instrument by yourself. You should contribute. I think it's contributed. There is contribution between the laboratory and the organization who is responsible from the waste or from the medical waste discharge. Okay, this is very important. You should put in your mind because the harmful effect of the instrument after retailer. Does the instrument have a warranty? And for long, the warranty of the instrument. Okay, there are any safety issue to consider before you purchasing. This is 11 factors. You should think well and then make a decision. In some cases, the instrument used in the laboratory for short period. For example, when you have a specific research and you want any instrument or whatever the instrument, just for research, I have a question. At that time, acquiring an instrument, it's better to purchase or lease or rent the instrument. Depend on the purposes of the instrument buying. If you have a research, if you have a specific work and this will finish, for example, after 6 months, after 3 months, and after that, there is nothing to do with this instrument. So the need of the instrument, it should be clear and verified which one is better, per case or rate of the instrument. Some companies rent the instrument. I remember in Sudan, there is instrument company. They sell as thermocycler, and they have rented thermocycler. They can rent the thermocycler for a short period, for 2 months, 3 months, or you can purchase the instrument. Okay. Also, this decision depends on the cost, because sometimes the renting the renting fees may similar to fees of the purchasing of the instrument. So you should put in your mind and think well on this concept and this issue. When making this decision, it is a good idea to factor in repair cost. If you decide you want to buy this instrument, at this time you should think well about the cost of the repair, because sometimes the cost of repair is very high. Also, I remember we have real-time PCR machine, the old version of the instrument. The software of the instrument, we missing the software of the instrument, and when we decide to put the instrument in on the surface again, we didn't find software. When we contact the company, we find software may halve the price of the instrument, just CD of the software. So the repairing cost is very important. The manufacturer should be provided all the necessary information to operate and maintain the instrument. Before anything, you should know everything. You should ask any question before you purchase. The initial cost of the instrument may seem reasonable, but it may be expensive in repair. I think this is clear up to you. So before purchasing, you should ask to prepare yourself, to prepare your area, and to prepare the space for the instrument, and to provide all necessary elements for the installation. You should ask about the wiring diagram, computer software information, a list of the parts needed, and the operator's manual are provided. Okay. The manufacturer will install the equipment and training staff, covering travel expenses as necessary as a part of the purchasing price. That means the purchasing contract should include the staff training. As we know, the mother company, usually in Europe, in America, Germany, whatever, and we are here on the Middle East, and we want to, when you purchase the instrument, when you buy the instrument, the company should train your staff to operate the instrument properly. So the contract should include or should cover the travel expenses of the staff. It should be written on the purchasing contract. The warranty includes a trial period to verify that the instrument performs as expected. Also, you should have a trial period after I have or not. Some company provide trial period for the instrument, especially when the instrument is new in the market. Because all of us we know there is a famous brand on the market, and also there is a new instrument try to compete with the famous brand on the market. So the warranty includes a trial period to verify that the instrument performs as expected. The manufacturer maintenance can be included in the contract, and if so, whether maintenance is provided on the regular basis. Okay. The maintenance of the instrument should be provided by the company on the regular basis, and you should ask what the interval of the maintenance. Either the company provide maintenance every month, or each 3 months, or 6 months. What's the weather of the maintenance program? Okay, we make a decision and we find out the best instrument, and we make a decision to purchase or to buy that instrument. So the second step is the installation of the instrument. Before the instrument is installed, verify that all physical requirements have been met. Physical requirements such as electrical, space, door, ventilation, water supply, gas supply, and whatever. What do you want? It depends on the type of the instrument you want to install. Okay, you should have suitable bench. Say, for example, when we talking about flow cytometry instrument, you should have a fixed bench, because the flow cytometry is very sensitive, because laser depend instrument. That means you should put the instrument on the bench, and you have no option to transfer the instrument from bench to another bench, or from side to another side after installation. So before the installation, you should provide and you should verify all physical requirements have been met. Other things to consider are the vendor responsibility for the installation should be confirmed in a written prior to beginning the installation process. What's the responsibility of the company that provide this instrument? As I mentioned, you should write down on the contract the company will train your staff, and all expenses of the training is included inside the purchasing price, and also the maintenance, the warranty. You should write the responsibility before installation, and also trial period should be written on the contract. A checklist for expected performance specification should be developed so that performance can be quickly verified as soon as the instrument is installed. So, as I said, it depends on the type of the instrument. Say, for example, when you want to buy a microscope, you didn't want to prepare a checklist for microscope. On the other hand, if you want to purchase, say, for example, seismics or covers instrument, you should ask which model of the covers, because there is different model and with different properties and different expected performance. 100 tests or more than 100 tests some of the instrument. So you should prepare the checklist of the instrument to verify or quickly verifying the validation of the instrument, and put your instrument on the surface as soon as possible. So after installation, an instrument has been installed. The following details needed to be addressed. Now we should our instrument outside the lab and the company staff or the company engineer team start installing and finish the installing of the instrument, and they leave. What about us? What about the laboratory responsibility before putting the instrument on the surface? Because there is a lot of things should be done before you put the instrument on the surface. Number one, you should assign responsibility for performing the maintenance and operation program. Who can operate this instrument? I know all the staff training on instrument, or some of staff training by the manufacturer and come back to train another staff or their colleague. So this instrument, you should assign the responsibility for performance, the maintenance, and the operating program. Also, develop a system for recording the uses of the part and supply. We're talking about the documentation system, because the documentation system is very important, just like your HC number. By the HC number, I know all of your health problem. So you should develop the recording system for each instrument. Number three, implement a written plan for calibration. Sometimes all of that depends on the SOPs. Don't forget that. Some SOPs or some laboratory calibrates the instrument after each or before each shift. That means they have a calibration at the morning, and at the calibration at the midday, and calibration at the night. Some of the laboratory, one calibration per day. Also depend on the type of the instrument. Some SOPs, the calibration 2 times at the morning and at the night shift. So you should have a clear plan for calibration, performance verification, and proper operation of the instrument. Establish a scheduled maintenance program that include daily, weekly, and monthly maintenance tasks. Also, on this point, you should follow the manufacturer instruction, what the daily maintenance and what the weekly maintenance and what the monthly maintenance task should be performed on the lab. And of course, you should document any maintenance on your instrument. Number 5, provide training for all operators. Only personnel who have been trained specifically to properly use the equipment should be authorized as operator. Of course, by the time all your staff will be professional to operate that instrument. But at the beginning, I mean, when you want to put the instrument on the surface, only person get the training should operate the instrument. Calibration, as I said, is very important. Calibration of the instrument before putting the instrument on the surface. On the calibration, we should follow the manufacturer's direction carefully when performing the initial calibration of the instrument. And this is the initial calibration, usually done by the company staff. They install the instrument and verify as an instrument. Then you can start to calibrate and so on. Determine how often the instrument will need to be recalibrated based on its stability and manufacturer recommendation. Okay. On this point of the recalibrations, it is very depend on the standard operating procedure of the laboratory. Some laboratory want more verification, and they want to calibrate their instruments 3 times per day, and some of them only 1 time. because the instrument is new, and so on. Okay. Anyhow, it depends on the manufacturer recommendation firstly, and then depend on the standard operating procedure of the lab. It may be advantage to use the calibrators provided by or procured from the methods. If, you should buy the calibrators usually from the same company that's manufactured the instrument, or that company you buy the instrument from them. So the performance validation, you should validate the performance of the instrument. So, as I say, the instrument should meet your expected result or expected performance. So you should evaluate the performance of the instrument. Prior to testing patient specimen, it's important to evaluate the performance of the new instrument to ensure it's working correctly with respect to accuracy and precision. On this case, we have two situations. If you have the old instrument, you have either from same company, so using same procedure with a few modification, or you have an instrument from the other company using totally new procedure. Okay, get my point? I mean, you have of course you have the old one, old instrument, and you have an instrument, new instrument. So if you have the instrument and just modified your instrument or upgrading the instrument from the same company, say for example, Sysmex, if you have Sysmex all the version and you want to upgrade the instrument to Sysmex, say for example NX 100 or 500. For example, here the hemoglobin procedure on the old version of Sysmex, similar to hemoglobin procedure on the new one, NX, so for example NX 100, sorry, NX 1000. So the procedure is same, but when you try to use another instrument, use a different procedure, this is a new case, it's a different case. So the evaluation, the performance evaluation should be different. In addition, test method using kit or laboratory instrument needed to be evaluated for ability to detect disease and to determine normal and reportable range. I mean, you want to detect the sensitivity, specificity of the instrument, and the positive and negative control, and what is your predictive value or cutoff value. Okay, so validation of new instrument and associated technique. If you have new instrument using technique you didn't use it before in your laboratory. If the instrument and associated technique are new, validation process will be important. Validation can be carried out by running sample in a parallel using both old and new instrument and method for a period of time to determine that the expected results can be obtained. So, for example, this is commonly points in a validation. You use an instrument and you run control, say for example, for 1 week on the old instrument and a new instrument, or sometimes for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, depend on the standard operating procedure of the laboratory. So after a specific period, come an analysis the results output. Okay, you should put in your mind the new instrument and its associated technique. You didn't release the patient result using that new instrument. Okay, unless the validation is complete. Okay, and after 1 month, for example, you come and you do a statistical exercise to detect the specificity and sensitivity of the instrument, and if there is a difference in the results, or there is no differences in the results. The validation procedure should be completely recorded. But we should record everything concerning that instrument. Okay. Now, our instrument, we make the series of this lecture. We make a decision to we select a specific instrument, then make installation, validation. After validation, we put the instrument on the surface. Okay, and at that time, the maintenance will start, and you should have a ready maintenance plan for your instrument. Maintenance plan will include preventive maintenance procedure as well as provision for inventory, troubleshooting, and repairing of the instrument. The maintenance plan at the general include preventive maintenance, also the inventory of the reagent and spare part of the instrument, troubleshooting of the instrument, and repairing of the instrument. When implementing an instrument maintenance program, some of the initial steps will include, if you want to decide your standard operating procedure, you should assign the responsibility, as I mentioned, for providing overtime, and usually it's the responsibility of the laboratory directors to assign the responsibility on the instrument. Also, develop written policies and procedure for maintaining instrument, including routine maintenance plan for each piece of the instrument that specify the frequencies with which all maintenance tasks should be performed. So, for example, the changing of the HEPA filter on the incubators, at which time you should, it's a policy, you should write down the policy of the changing of pieces of the instrument. Also, the carbon filter, for example, the carbon filter will be changed after each 6 months. Okay. Also, developing format for it for records, creating logs and forms, and establishing the process to maintain record. Okay, and you should follow the record day by day. Who can follow the record? This one should be assigned by this one who is overseeing the instrument, either lab director, seniors, technologists, whatever was on. And the last, training the staff on use and maintenance of the instrument, and ensuring that all staff understand their specific responsibility. Honestly, the recording process, someone feel make lazy. They didn't want to comment the maintenance or to fill out the record. If this instrument is yours, the cost repair for you is very high at the final, because if unwell maintained instrument will break down, non-functional, and you should buy for the repair. So it's recommended that label is attached to an instrument indicating when the next maintenance or service should be performed. Okay. Besides, it's a part of the documentation. We have paper to document the maintenance, and also you should make a label on the instrument that label indicate. I mean, to remember you for the time of the second maintenance. Okay, preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance include measures such as systemic and routine cleaning, adjustment and replacement of the instrument part at schedule interval. Okay, this is called preventive maintenance. That means daily maintenance, weekly maintenance, monthly maintenance, half year, each year. It's a part of the instrument. Either this maintenance, either it's systemic, I mean, it's performing at very long interval, 6 months, 1 year, or routine maintenance, I mean routine cleaning, daily, weekly maintenance. Manufacturers generally recommend a set of instrument maintenance tasks that should be performed at regular intervals, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, or half year, 6 months maintenance. Following this recommendation will ensure that the instrument performs at the maximum efficiency and will increase the lifespan of the equipment. As I said, maintenance and regular follow-up of the instrument have a great advantage mentioned on the beginning of this presentation. Preventive maintenance also helps to prevent inaccurate test results due to instrument failure. All of us, we know, we have systematic error and we have random error. As this random error, it's possible if your instrument is calibrated and an accurate instrument, there is a ratio of the random error. But the systematic error is our problem because it's continuous and all tests. Okay, so preventive maintenance also help in inaccurate test result, prevent inaccurate test result due to instrument failure, delay in reporting test result. As I said, we have a TAD, time turnaround, low productivity, as I make a comparison between physician office lab and SOCOR lab, and large repair cost. Here I have recording maintenance information, and we have example form. I will try to bring a form from the internet, but I don't know if it is clear or not. Each instrument should have a dedicated logbook documenting all characteristics and instrument elements, include preventive maintenance done or preventive maintenance activities and schedule, recording of the function checks and calibration, any maintenance performed by the manufacturer, full information on any problems that the instrument developed, and also subsequent troubleshooting activity and follow-up information regarding resolution of the problem. Why I mentioned that? What's the importance of this point? The importance of the full information, because some maintenance by the manufacturer or maintenance performed by the manufacturer will affect the procedure. There is change or there is shift in the procedure of the instrument. So the documentation is important to follow the situation of the instrument exactly and to know the inventory, the spare part of the instrument, which one is more consumed, what's the problem, and to know the situation of the instrument generally. So the full information on any problems that the instrument developed, subsequent troubleshooting, and follow information regarding the solution of the problem, how to solve the problem at the next time. Here I have a form for daily maintenance and weekly maintenance for centrifuge. This is form, model, serial number, person in charge, month, also some SOPs recommend that to add the serial, the purchasing date of the instrument. And here on this column, I think it's not clear for you. I will try to make it big. Okay. Also, it's not clear. Anyhow, as I said, preventive maintenance, there is some items recommended by the manufacturer. Okay, and you should follow the manufacturer instruction. If you have also in your standard operating procedure, if you have a new, if you want to add something, you can add. Weekly maintenance. Also, you have items. You should follow these items, and what you want to add depend on standard operating procedure or standard operating procedure. And you should, all the technologists should follow the field of the log of the log sheet. And this log sheet should be reviewed by either by the laboratory seniors, laboratory directors, and whatever who assign it to follow or to maintenance. Another types of equipment maintenance sheets. There is a lot of items. There is a lot of information about the instrument, name of pieces of equipment, label, serial number, manufacturer, contact, who you will contact in case of malfunction, date of purchase, date of instrument put in service, because the data of the purchase differ from the data of instrument put in service because there is a period of validation. Person responsible for equipment and so on. Okay. Here you should write the date and describe. You should describe the maintenance, date of evaluations before putting in service, validation, performed by maintenance, next maintenance plan on that remark. This form also should be. This is just an example. This is to form. Just for example, for an example for documentation of the instrument record. Of course, there's a lot of kinds of form, as you know. Each one have, or each corporation or each lab have on log form, depend on the type of the instrument. The important part, the recording of problem when the instrument breakdown or malfunction. There is a real problem makes the instrument out of service. So this problem should be recorded. Okay. In recording problems, be sure to record that problem occurred and when the instrument was removed from service. It's important to know the fasting or the fastness of the service provided by the company. Reason of or reason for breakdown or failure. What's the reason? What happened exactly? What's the problem exactly? And what's the corrective action taken, including not about any service provided by a manufacturer, and also that return to service or return to use, any change to procedure for maintenance or functional checks as a result for problem. Because by the times, as I say, the maintenance procedure may be changed, depend on the manufacturer's instruction. Some of tools that are helpful for keeping records of instrument management are chart, checklist, logs, graphs, service report. All of them are tools to provide a good instrument management. Note, the logbook should be available for review during the entire life of equipment. The documentation from day zero till the last day should be all the information about the instrument should be available for review. The last part is retiring and disposing of instruments. It's very important to have policy and procedure for retiring the old instrument or laboratory instrument, because some instrument may harm the environment, may harm people after retiring. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, you should find out the most suitable way, and you should have a policy, a clear policy. This policy should be written in contribution or contribution with the Ministry of Health or person who is responsible from the charge of the medical waste. Once a piece of equipment is fully retired and it has been determined that it has no further use, it should be disposed of in an appropriate manner. That means you should follow your policy. When disposing of the equipment, salvage any unused usable parts. If you have a similar instrument, take some part from the old one before disposing the instrument, particularly if the instrument is being replaced by another similar one, similar or upgraded one. Then consider any potentially biohazards and follow all safety disposal procedures. I think this is very fast and very summarized introduction for the instrument, and I hope now you can able to make decision and how you can install the instrument and how you can the maintenance and how you can retire your instrument in a proper manner. Hopefully, this lecture is a good one. And if there is any addition or recommendation or question, it's time for.
Really thank you, Dr. Abubakar, for this highly informative section and information provided. And just for summarizing the lecture from the first, Dr. Abubakar has been talking about the different kinds of laboratory. And based on the laboratory that you have, you are going to choose the instrument that you are going to use. And also we have gone through the increase the safety of workers and selecting of instrument, proper selecting instrument, and how after that you can install the instrument correctly. And then after that he has talked about the calibration and the performance validation. Then the maintenance, how you are going to perform the accurate.
معليش يا عادل بس الصوت ما واضح. لو ممكن
كده واضح يا
سماعة.
كده واضح يا وفاء الصوت؟
ممتاز.
كده الصوت واضح يا وفاء؟
واضح جدا.
الصوت واضح يا وفاء لأنه ما سامع.
واضح.
واضح يا عادل واضح.
From the beginning again, we would like to thank Dr. Abubakar about the highly informative lecture. Just to summarize the information that provided in this lecture, he has spoken firstly about the safety of workers inside the laboratory and the different kind of laboratory. Based on that, we are going to use the instruments. And then how you are going to select the instruments based on what kind of laboratory that you have. Then he spoke about the installation, the installation of correct instrument that you need. Then the calibration and the performance validation. He has gone also through the maintenance and the retirement of instruments. And the most important things that control everything is the documentation. Whenever you have a proper documentation, then everything will go fine. And all these things, it should go through your SOPs and the manuals provided by which instruments that you need. The manuals actually is very important. And I have a simple question about the safe distribution of instruments inside the lab for Dr. Abubakar. So how we can make sure that the instruments are distributed safely inside the laboratory by means of we have to make sure the spaces may be neat, or some instruments can be, for example, generating some kinds of heats. So, and about the also the electrical instruments, which should be like sometimes away from the water sinks or so just if you can give like a very few information about how we have to distribute the instruments inside the lab.
Thank you for your good question,
unmute يا أبو بكر. أبو بكر أنت ميوت. أيوة.
Thank you, Adil, for your good question. And the distribution of the instrument inside the laboratory depends on the laboratory design. When we want to start at the beginning, when the laboratory, each project on the world start as the idea. Then we started to make it a real. So the design of the laboratory at the beginning, you should have a fixed bench. You should have also, before you have a fixed bench, you have long-term vision, 20 years, 30 years, whatever, 10 years. So you should design your lab from the beginning as in the way make you able to add different kinds of the instrument. Also, the size of the instrument, the distribution of the instrument inside the bench depends on the type of instrument. As I mentioned, in case of flow cytometry, are not allowed to transfer or to change the place of the instrument from bench to bench, because this is dependent instrument, and there is a very narrow pore that there's a path through to detect them. If any interruption on the bench or on the instruments, the laser will not go inside that port and finally get misfunction. So the distribution is depend on the type of the instruments and depend on the designing of the laboratory from the beginning, and depend on the distribution of the electrical socket on a very voltage before you start your work. If you want to add the instrument on the future, you can arrange the electricity problem before you bring the new instrument for your laboratory. Also, you can design a new bench for specific instrument. Thank you.
طيب عادل لو سمحت ممكن في مداخلة من الأخت ابتهاج نشوفه وبعدين نرجع لك.
اوكي
تفضلي أخت ابتهاج.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Thank you, Abubakar. I have one question. What is the difference between validation and verification, and when we do each one? Validation and verification. Thank you.
Okay. This is a good question. What's the difference between the validation and a verification? The validation, you want to validate the instrument performance, okay? And you want to validate the reagent, and you want to validate the environment. Then the verification to verify the output. That means you make sure your output is accurate and precise output.
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Abubakar, just another question is that if the validation of instrument not pass, and still we need to use the instrument in cases of, say, we had an emergency or pandemic situation. So in this case, can still we use it despite the validation is not passed? And still we need to use the instrument, say for any kind of emergency use or pandemic use, or is there any rules to say that still we can use the instrument?
Okay.
unmute يا أبو بكر. معلش بس أنا بعمل لك ميوت عشان الصلاة.
Okay. This is a good question. If the validation is not passed, yeah, can you use the instrument or not? This is your question, Adi, right? Yes. If the validation is not passed, you're unable to use the instrument. You can't put the instrument on the surface. It's a general rule. Okay. You should verify, and the verification is passed, and then you can put the instrument. This is a normal situation. You can put the instrument on the surface. If in a normal situation and also the validation is not passed, you contact the manufacturer. They, as I said before, after they install the instrument, they should make a verification. And for that, I said you should write down on the instrument contract the responsibility. Clearly write down the responsibility of each one, responsibility of the manufacturer. So if the validation is not passed in the normal conditions, we are unable to use the instrument unless the validation is passed. In case of the disaster, second part of the question. Okay. I think the uses of the instrument in case of the disaster. In case of disaster, you can use anything, but the responsibility of the result output is very high. So, what's the benefit from putting the instrument on the surface and your results? Your unconfidence, you have no confidence on the instrument, or you have no confidence in this result. Well, what's the benefit? I think there is no benefit from putting the instrument on the surface before validation is done. Must depend on your opinion. If you want to put it
but I think it will be very dangerous to use it while the validation was not passed. That means, as you said, there is no trust in your results. So in this case, the best decision is to not use the instrument at all. Thank you so much, Dr. Abubakar.
As I said, it should be under responsibility. Personal responsibility.
I don't think so anyone will going to take this risk.
Yes.
طيب هدى، في أي أسئلة في اللايف في الفيسبوك؟
أيوة في سؤال في الفيسبوك بيسألوا what is the most problem appear in lab when we use instrument?
What is the most problem appear in the lab when we use instrument? What the most common lab يعني قصد common problem قصدهم؟
I think what is the most problem? What the most problem?
ما عارفة إذا السؤال وضح لك ولا لا يا أبو بكر. مكتوب what is the most problem appear in the lab when we use instrument. I think you mean the most common problem.
ثواني the most common problem.
There is a question from Ahmed.
There is another question, Dr. Abubakar. Wafa, can you just repeat the question again?
Okay. The question say, what is the most common problem appear in the lab when you use instrument?
What is the most common problem?
I think he mean the new instrument. What is the most common problem?
What is the most common problem when you install a new instrument?
What's the most common problem when?
When you install a new instrument.
What's the most common problem when
during the installation, for example, of new instrument?
The instrument.
Yes.
The most common problem when you install a new instrument on the lab is either your validation is not okay, or it's not pass, or your QC not pass. And usually on the first days after putting your instrument on the surface, you can observe the problem, and you will try to manage that problem in a suitable way, depend on the instruction and in a contribution with the manufacturer. But there is no clear cutoff for problem 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the problem will be happen after the installation. The most common one is the validation is not done and verification is not done easily.
So I think just as an addition to this nice information, there will be like a site visiting just before installing the new instrument. At that time, you will really realize which issues that you are going to face later on, like not taking the accurate measurements for the instrument.
Yes.
So this is one of the most problems maybe. And sometimes if your laboratory is well designed, then you will have like the fire system, fire defense system. It will be in the roof. So if your instrument is the kind of instrument that's going to generate like steams, in this case, it will be a problem for you that side. So you need to change the site again. And so the site visiting, it is highly important. And at that time, you will really realize which issues that you are going to face in the nearest future.
Okay.
For that, before you application, I mentioned here, you should ask,
yes,
clarify, and verify if this instrument suitable. If you discover the problem after application, this is your responsibility, of course. The company left you alone. What they can do for you? They do nothing because you make a decision to buy the instrument. Okay, so the physical factors of the instrument should be clear. Solve it before you make a decision of buying specific instrument.
So, Dr. Abubakar, what about preparing the inventory list from the first time, for example, of opening the laboratory?
Sorry?
The preparation of inventory list of equipment.
Preparation of what?
Inventory list.
inventory list.
So you will have like a list of all the kind of instruments that you have it inside the lab from the first instrument until
You should have.
Yeah.
You should have.
اوكي طيب في question هنا في الchat. If we are going to use an instrument which has been used before in different lab in our organization, for example, do we need to do validation and verification?
وفا صوتك ما واضح يا أبوبكر.
طيب كده واضح؟
أيوة.
If we are going to use an instrument which has been used before in a different lab in our organization, do we need to do the validation and verification?
This question. بسرعة بس.
أيوة.
Yes, you want to do validation and verification. You have two situations. Either you have just upgrading your instrument, if I understand your question in correct manner. This is my answer. If you have a same instrument, say for example, I mentioned example in Sysmix, you want to upgrade with another version or more modified one. So you have an instrument from the same company using same method. Okay, at that time you need to make a validation and verification. But I think this validation and verification is easier than the other one. On the other hand, when you have a new instrument, completely new instrument with a new procedure or with new method, okay, the verification here will take a long time because you want to run the instrument, as I said, for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3, 1 month, and then you make the statistical exercise to find out specificity and sensitivity and to validate, and then you can after that you can put your instrument on the service. Okay. Anyhow, this depends on the organization or depend on the standard operating procedure of the lab.
So, Dr. Abubakar, about the documentation, is there a specific criteria for documenting the either the maintenance, installation, the full report of an instrument? And also at the same time, what we can do for example, the staff who are not care about the documentation, the proper documentation for the instrument. Because I think the documentation is the guides telling you that from the first time of installation until the current situation, what was really happening for this instrument, the full history.
Can you repeat your question again, Adil?
Yes. The question is about the documentation. The first question, is there any specific criteria for documentation that anyone can follow? And the second one, following the specific criteria, it should be done, for example, by responsible staff. But in case if we have like some problem with different kind of staff who are ready to document the full report about the instrument from first until the current situation. We know that the documentation, it contains the history of an instrument from first time until the last time. So improper documentation, it can lead to a series of issues. So is there any kind of specific criteria for proper documentation?
Okay. Anyhow, let us to make a deal. Your instrument, like your baby, you should follow at any time situation. So for that reason, you should write everything on the instrument, starting from the daily maintenance till the problem solved by you should document it. Everything done on the instrument, you should write down all of that. This is number one. Second question is about the people who don't care about the documentation. If I understand your question. It's a personal problem. Each corporation or each hospital have a rule to follow, because the irregular documentation, that means how you know the maintenance will be performed, and this is finally lead to instrument breakdown. Okay, so you should write down everything. Okay, when the problem it occurred, then you can review your documentation. What the problem? Okay, is the maintenance done on the time? Is the calibration done on the time? If there is any change in procedure recommended by the manufacturer on the last maintenance. Okay, you know what the situation of the instrument. So that without documentation, you can't able to know the problem, and also you're unable to know the situation of the instrument exactly. Anyhow, let us to deal with the documentation. You should document. You should write down everything about the instrument, and the another thing, the all document or the logbook should be available for viewing at any time with the instrument for the entire life of the instrument.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abubakar. Huda, Wafa, is there any other questions from your side?
في أسئلة يا هدى في الفيسبوك أو
لا خلص،
في الشات؟
ما في أسئلة ثانية.
طيب في أي مداخلة؟
في سؤال في الشات ممكن تراجعوه.
أعتقد جاوبنا على كل الأسئلة. The difference between validation and verification.
Does that clarify? Please clarify the difference between validation and verification again by more details of the steps. Maybe this question.
أعتقد السؤال ده يعني هو.
If we are going to use an instrument which has been used before in different lab in our organization, for example, do we need to do the validation and verification? This is the last question in the chat.
جاوب عليه يا راني.
Already have answered this question.
طيب عندنا مشاركة من ياسر سعيد. تفضل يا ياسر. unmute.
طيب السلام عليكم. مساء الخير للجميع. شكرا للأخ أبو بكر، المحاضرة الجميلة الغيمة الشيقة دي. A few comments actually I need to highlight on that one. The first one, the question that one has been asked regarding the using of the instrument during the emergency cases. Okay. Now we have to go back and look for the instrument, what kind of instrument we need to use it during the emergency. Is it assayed or unassayed instrument? It's a multi-use test instrument or it is a single-use test instrument? Is it a point of care instrument or qualitative instrument or a fully assayed instrument? Then we have to go back and look where did we fail during the validation, verification or validation. Because usually on the assayed instrument, we do a verification, we're not doing a validation. We do a verification for the manufacturer claim. Usually manufacturer, he said that one, the performance for my quality control for the X test, it is within the 1.5 SD. So what we do, because the first validation has done by the manufacturer, and that is it will be published in the literature, always attached to the insert or to the operator manual. When we go back and look for any reagent insert, we will find all the details for the manufacturer, how he did that one, the validation on the first time. Usually we will go back and do the verification of what he have done it. To ensure the claim that one, when he said that one, my output for the linearity of this test, it will be up to 300. I want to make sure that one, we are reaching the 300. Now we have to go back and look where did we fail when we do the verification. If the verification was done it in somewhere, it could not give us on a high risk for the patient and the reliability is not going to be affected that most because there is a 3 level of the verification: accuracy, precision, linearity, and we can do the internal or intra comparison if we have an additional instrument available. And this is also depends upon the rule. So the 3 requirement that mostly our requirement is the precision, accuracy, and the linearity. Say that then I fell in the linearity, I pass in the comparison, I pass in the precision. So where did I fail in the linearity? I felt the protein, it doesn't give me that one 300, it gave me up to 200. We can take a decision and we will report up to 200 only until we complete the validation for the protein. Because up to that limit, the machine is going okay. It gave me a 3 point, and this is a minimum requirement for the linearity. We have to look for the whole picture. What is my message here? The comment I need to say it. We have to look for the whole picture. We have to measure the uncertainty before we go for the decision that one not use. Because putting of the patient on a risk just because of a simple factor that is, it's not a major factor. It's not affecting the performance of the instrument itself. It could be that one more than we said that one we will not use the instrument. We're gonna stop it totally. The question it will become that one if we use the unassayed instrument, like in an immunology, or we develop an in-house method. The time if we develop an in-house method, we should go for a full validation. We cannot go for verification that time because there is no background. I'm not going to verify anything. I need to prove that one, this instrument is given the criteria I needed. Where is my patient that one in the risk? Say that one, for we develop for PSA, one of the examples, internally that one in-house we put it. We want for the immunity test, any type of immunity test that one we develop in-house. Usually there'll be no background, no reference. I will go that one. This time I'm going to use the Golding reference. The Golding reference, usually I cannot go for short term. The other things I need to add in this one, a verification, it can be that one extensive. I don't need to go for that one for a long-term verification. Once I get it, maybe that one I go and satisfy with the 15 point at the initial time, and I'm going to prolong it on a period. I will go down, and after that times, I'll make a full satisfaction to give that one, this instrument is ready for the patient testing. I can do it over time. I don't need to do that one on a first time. I'll go for 1 week or for fully 2 weeks or so on. You can shorten it. You can do it that one within 3 days. how we do that one, we're getting that one, the running of more material during the day. I can run at morning, evening, and night times. And I can do the accuracy using the patient's sample testing instead of, or I can use a manufacturer material based rather than I will go for the patient sample, because there's uncertainty during on the patient sample. I cannot get all the times on a normal patient sample to do the validation. So usually manufacturer has, when we request any instrument, it should be done on a part of an agreement with that company. They have to validate, provide the validation material, full validation material. And this should be that one very clearly highlighted in the contract. Because of such a thing of uncertainty, you cannot use a standard material, and you ask me that one to use a patient sample for verifying you against the standard material. Give me the same standard material, that one when you have do it initially, when you did the validation for first time, then I'm going to do the verification of what you have claimed to me. So that it will make it easy. It should be that one part of the contract. And I think Mr. Abubakar has mentioned it, that one, the contract is not only one level, it should be two levels of the contract, a commercial and the technical specification. And here I am focusing, emphasizing that one, the technical specification, it should be very detailed. It should be more specified requirement from the manufacturer. Because not only that one, and because you know that when the company are coming to our laboratory, usually they want to show you the shining, the brightness of their machines, the goodness of their machine. They will not tell you that one about what is a hidden, what is a defect on their machine, and a lot of things. You will come to know one when you start using of the machine. To avoid all that one, the specification has to be that one from the clear, very clear. It should be that one is stated with a very exhibit group from the laboratory department, either that one as an internal or on the leadership, management and leadership level. It will give us, it shorten our time. We will not face a big problem, because selecting of the instrument, once that one is selected, one of the good in the marketing with a good reference, with a good background, available reference, we can go back and ask where it is available and so on. We will compare our performance with that reference. It will make our life easy and very, very, very simple. In very short times, we will finish our verification, or it is a validation for the NSA. Some kind of an instrument like an appointment of care. What kind of verification do I need to do, or validation? Why I cannot use it that one against a claim? And I can use it against the claim of the manufacturer, even so, even without doing the requirement of this one, because we know that one, if it is a said method or an unsaid method, the unsaid method, it doesn't need to be from this one. The wave test, what we call it now, right now, they say that when the wave test, I don't need to do any verification for the wave test. Immediately I can put that one on place, and this machine, it can go and do give me the performance. Why I should waste my time, waste the material and the cost effective? This is most important, and I need to, in the usual, of course, as Dr. Abubakar has mentioned it, that one, we cannot put an instrument on place for patient testing unless we pass all our validation. Completely that one it should be. And I know that when the policy from laboratory, from institution, from hospital, it could be a different. The requirement, it could be different, because the leadership has put it that one, this is a minimum requirement for me to pass the validation or verification of that instrument, and I immediately put that one on place. I'm not going for it. But private sector, usually they will go for the short, and they want to do, you know, that one. They are not going to spend much of money, cost effective for them. A government hospital, it may be that one you have a little bit more space that want to do deep or more prolong it, a little better, or prolong it verification or validation. So we have to look for the whole picture. We have to put all the factors that one is around us, and at the end of the day, we will decide what to do with this instrument, either if it is an emergency case or an emergency case. This is number one. Number two, go and not to go. The risk assessment should be done before starting any laboratory. you have to have a team that the team should come and evaluate everything. Go and do the assessment for all the risk factors available in your laboratory: physical, chemical, electricals, space-wise, distribution, the areas, environment, ventilation. That all these factors is going to affect your performance definitely. Sometimes the people are not neglecting that things, and this is highly risky for some instrument, for some tests. We should have to do a very great risk assessment before not go and not to go. Go and not to go. The ideas about that one, it will give us an assessment for this one. We will try to close all the deficiency that one. It may be affecting our performance when we start using the laboratory itself as a laboratory, or the instrument that one we added to our platform. If we have a new line, we added there. Thank you very much. And hopefully I give an addition for what he said, Dr. Abubakar. Thank you, Abubakar. Really, it is very informative presentation. We have a great information today. We have it. You will learn from that one. And hopefully we'll see you again also, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasser.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yasser.
أي إضافة يا جماعة؟ في أي مداخلة ولا نختم؟
I think we have done from our side. So just check your the Facebook group.
طيب صوتي واضح يا جماعة؟
أيوة واضح.
أيوة واضح.
How perform complex precision. ما عارفة قصدها شنو صراحة. How perform complex precision. مكتوب كده في الفيسبوك.
Maybe she meant how we can perform complex
سارة أنت لو معانا في الزوم ممكن تدخلي تقولي سؤالك عشان يكون أوضح.
I think she's not here now. Still the question not clear يا
سارة لو موجودة في الزوم أدخلي قولي السؤال. شكلها هي موجودة في الفيسبوك بس ما موجودة في الزوم.
موجودة في الفيسبوك.
So I think we have done يا أبا.
طيب من طرفي أنا بشكر دكتور أبوبكر على المحاضرة الشيقة. كنت معاكم أنا وفاء محمد عبد الرحيم من المكتب الإعلامي، ومعاكم برضو زميلتي هدى خليل المكتب الإعلامي برضو. ألف شكر دكتور أبوبكر على المحاضرة الجميلة، وطبعا لسه الموضوع كبير ومتشعب وفي حاجات كثيرة شديد لسه ما تكلمنا عنها، و we are looking forward يعني إنه نواصل سلسلة من المحاضرات تغطي لنا كل الحاجات دي، نتكلم عن كل الحاجات الباقية كلها بالتفصيل والQC وكل الحاجات. شكرا جزيلا أخونا عادل لو عندك أي كلمة أخيرة تفضل.
الشكر الجزيل لأخونا أبو بكر، وزي ما ذكرت يا وفاء حيكون إن شاء الله عندنا مجموعة من الفعاليات والمحاضرات الدورية، إن شاء الله كونوا مترقبين على صفحة الرابطة على الفيس، وإن شاء الله سيتم إرسال الرابط بتاع الزوم متى ما جهزت أي محاضرة أو فعالية بإذن الله تعالى. مشكورين جدا وجزاكم الله خيرا كثيرا.
شكرا جزيلا، مع السلامة.